Good morning. This is Brenda Hughes. I'm the owner of Evansville Home Staging and Redesign, and I'm having a cup of coffee this morning with Eric Kneller, the owner of Living Water, and we network together in our businesses, and I wanted to find out a little bit more this morning about what he does, why he does it, and how he does it. So I'm just going to ask you some questions, Eric, and then you can answer them for me.
That sounds great.
Okay. Tell me why you started your business in Living Water.
Well, Brenda, one of our really dear friends is in the home remodeling space, and you probably knew me a little bit when I was in the corporate arena, and I had spent about 15 years in that world and for pharmaceutical nutritional companies, done a lot of work for procurement and purchasing for those companies and traveled for them. But prior to that, I had a lot of experience in construction. So I've been as far as 25 feet in the ground and 40 feet in the air in different construction fields.
Yeah.
And we have a friend that's in the remodeling space, and he actually asked us to take a look at a technology he was thinking of bringing on board as part of his construction remodeling business. It was strictly that we would give him our opinion about if we think it was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened was we saw the opportunity to, initially it was an environmental opportunity and impact. And what we saw put in front of us, we knew could be very helpful to the environment because it was a unique technology and we saw that opportunity. When we dug a little bit deeper below the surface, though, what we realized was how much we didn't know about water. We didn't realize how much of an impact it has on our daily lives, and some of the many things that we were personally suffering from could be traced to the fact that we were probably most definitely not taking care of ourselves when it came to water and hydration. And a little bit more information, and once we crossed a certain line of having enough information, it became a burden to get this information out to other people.
Right.
Because the amount of water that we have available to us in the U.S., even though we have access to it, we're not aware of it, we're not treating it properly, and therefore it's not treating us properly. And we realized there was a major health impact to be had here, so we couldn't leave it alone. And what happened was I resigned from my corporate career, and my wife Joanna and myself, we launched Living Water.
Well, that was a big step for you to take. I know most people have no clue even how much water they should be drinking every day, much less what's in the water they are drinking and what kind of impact it has on their lives. Isn't water all the same here in the U.S.? Is it, it's just H2O, right?
Well, that's what I thought. And I thought, hey, I'll just pick up a bottle of water because maybe there was a perception that it was better for me in a store or out of convenience. And the rest of the water that came out of the tap, maybe I knew a little bit about. Some of it was softened. I knew that term. I didn't really think about what it meant. I knew that some water tasted different and some tasted worse or better. And I had in my head from my youth that well water was better. A lot of times people believe, well, I drink well water is really good because it's from the ground and there's no other source contaminant, there's nothing else that's in it.
Right.
Because that's what
put anything in it.
Yeah, because that's what we were taught as kids. Well, the truth is that all water is not just water, and we talk of H2O and its purity with just those parts being the formulation or makeup of water, that would be pure water. But really, there are hundreds of contaminants in our water source, whether it be from the ground in a well or whether it be from a municipal treated facility. And some of these contaminants, so anything besides H2O, is officially a contaminant. Some of these contaminants are good minerals, but a whole lot of these contaminants are not good for us at all. And in fact, they're linked directly to many diseases. They're linked directly to carcinogens. And depending upon the area that somebody lives in the U.S., the concentration of those industrial chemicals and contaminants, based on what's been put into the ground or onto the crops, for example, in farming, or where the water source comes from, whether it's near some heavy industry or which river it comes out of. So what really turns out here is that water is not all the same, and its contents vary from place to place, and it really is dramatically different.
Do you see that in different areas by the rate of disease that they have in their locations, or as a direct reflection of what type of water system?
Sure, absolutely. Everybody probably knows, well, everybody won't recognize this if I say hexavalent chromium. That's a big word, right? It's a big chemical word, but most people will recognize the name Erin Brockovich. This is a classic example of a huge cancer cluster and people being dramatically impacted and their lives being shortened by carcinogens placed in the water source, and that's where it came from. It's an industrial chemical that was in the water supply.
Right. Okay, well, what if I'm softening my water or using some other treatment for hardness? Does that filter my water and make it healthier?
That's a great question and commonly believed. I think once people recognize that they have a hard water problem because they see the aesthetic impact on their home, they put a softener in or they treat the water hardness, and there's a thought process that says, well, I've taken care of it, and there's actually a filtering that's going on, and people believe that. The truth is, softening is not filtering.
Okay.
And treating for water hardness is not filtering. You got to separate water into the types of what you're doing to it. Are you conditioning or treating, or are you filtering or purifying, or are you doing both? So typically when somebody mentions softening, they're maybe using an older or newer technology for treating of water hardness, and they could be exchanging actual beneficial minerals for other elements that they maybe don't want as much in. So just a classic example of that is the traditional salt softening. Salt softening has been around for a long, long time, and the older softeners that are still out in the marketplace or still in people's homes are very inefficient, and they actually exchange or put a lot of sodium into the water supply, into a person's home, and into the wastewater as they remove the calcium and magnesium or hardness of the water. So that's just one example. And in that case, the person's removed the hardness, but they haven't talked anything about those hundreds of chemical contaminants that we were just talking about. So softening is not filtering, and treating for hardness is not filtering. Purification and filtration are very specific.
Right, and plus you just added a whole lot more sodium to your drinking water, so you're getting a whole lot more sodium every day when you're drinking it.
That's very good potential depending upon the water hardness and the efficiency of the equipment that somebody uses, for sure.
Well, I know that we get an annual report from my municipal water company, and it's telling me what my water meets all of the EPA government standards, so our water is good and safe, right? I mean, should we have concerns here? We're trusting the government and them to test the water and tell us it's okay.
As I talk to people and ask them if they've seen that report, it's rare that they remember it. So usually it kind of comes across the kitchen counter, they give it a quick glance and toss it away, or they look down and scan it and it says that they meet the standards. And I have no argument with the fact that the municipal facilities are meeting the EPA standards. I have a problem with the EPA standards. Therein lies the challenge. So right now there are, we mentioned there's hundreds of contaminants. There are short lists of contaminants that are required to be tested for. And there has been government-established safety standards placed on those contaminants. So I often ask the question to somebody in the home. I might say, Brenda, you've got a standard for safety for you and your family, and the government has a standard for safety for you and your family. Which do you believe is higher, your standard or the government standard? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we're faced with here. So as the municipal facility can honestly say they're meeting the government standards and the EPA standards, the little quote that I'd like to put out there is that low standards equals high marks every time.
Right. If we're expecting the government to keep as high a standards as we would want, we're going to be disappointed. Sometimes that we notice that our water takes on a strong chlorine odor. What is that? I mean, I turn on the faucet and the water comes out and I can actually smell the chlorine in it.
That's actually one of the chemical contaminants that we're talking about here. See, chlorine and other disinfectants are used in order to protect us from microorganisms that would create disease in mass quantities. So it has taken care of acute disease challenges. So early in the 1900s, they introduced chlorination into the water supply in major cities, and that eliminated mass breakouts of disease like typhoid and cholera, where thousands of people were being impacted. And so it takes care of that, and that's where the chlorine's coming from. What's happening is the facility is dosing with either chlorine or chloramine, typically used, and that's a chlorine-ammonia combination. And those disinfectants are keeping us safe from harmful bacteria that would be in the system between the facility and our home. However, those same disinfectants, they combine with other organic compounds in the pipes on the way to your home, and these things create what's called disinfectant byproducts. And these disinfectant byproducts have big, long names. The bottom line is, you'll see them on your report too that we just talked about, either as TTHMs or trihalomethanes or haloacetic acids, and they'll be called out as disinfectant byproducts. Well, if you look into that a little bit more, I always like to say Google it, those disinfectant byproducts are carcinogens. So the obvious mark of carcinogens in the water is the chlorine, because if they're using the chlorine, then it has to be mixing with the other compounds and then creating disinfectant byproducts, which by then are going to be carcinogens.
So really, those should be removed from the water before it's put into our public water system. The challenge is to maintain safety of those in the acute stages. Okay, so the diseases that we don't want to have as soon as you drink the water, you get sick. Those are the bugs I'm talking about. So they need the disinfection process, and they need to make sure it gets from the treatment facility to your home. And that infrastructure has to be protected. But here's the truth. The only way to know what's in your water is to take the responsibility of filtering or treating it yourself. And that's where we are really big on encouraging people to filter it. And really the municipal facility is manufacturing water. And what we teach people is how to manufacture it in their own home to a safe standard. So there's no time soon when those disinfectants are going to be taken out of our water supply, because they're there to serve the purpose of the short-term acute illness, but they create chronic or long-term problems. Right. Okay. So we need to put into place those systems in our homes and that further filter the waters with, like, the reverse osmosis system and the alkaline system that you also market.
That's our recommendation. We don't go in and pretend or say and dictate what somebody needs. What we go in and do is find out what's in the water, what goals they're trying to accomplish, and then line up a good, better, and best solution that would meet up to their standards and needs.
Okay. Well, I know one of the primary benefits of the alkaline water is to help you get properly hydrated. And how important is that?
Well, it's paramount to everything that we do. It's the one thing, if we change one thing about our lifestyle and just changed our hydration, everything would get better. Why? Because we're 70% water as we walk around and live and breathe. Parts of our body, like our brain and our blood, are over 80%. So then by default, how we treat our water and how we hydrate our body is going to directly impact all areas of our health. So whether or not somebody's a high-performing athlete or whether or not somebody is in a long-term care facility and are highly medicated and don't have enough exercise, hydration is going to be a primary concern and should be a primary concern. Here's the analogy when it comes to hydration and the proper water to hydrate is if your cells are like a chain link fence and you're trying to get apples through that chain link fence, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of apples through there. But if you've got the right structure and you're trying to get grapes through that chain link fence, you get a whole lot more grapes through there. Mm-hmm. So the type of water that we're actually consuming has a lot to do with getting down to the cellular level. And one of the other primary things it does is it flushes out toxins,
right,
which we're always under attack on a daily basis from pollutants and things in our environment. So proper hydration helps us flush those out.
I know that's really important for me with what I'm going through. We talk about being dehydrated. I know the last 3 times I took my mom to the hospital, that was one of the first things they noticed, that was she was partially dehydrated, and they had to, stick IVs in her before they started to treat her for anything else. So I've been trying to work with her to encourage her to drink the water too, so she'll stay hydrated.
Yeah, and I find that's in an aging population, that's a hard thing to keep up with, because they associate being thirsty with hydration.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that actually thirst is a very late stage of dehydration. Mm-hmm. That's a signal. Things happen in our body long before then. So as we age, people tend to attribute these things with just their age, and they say, well, I'm tired more because I'm older, or my joints ache because I'm older, or I have a headache, or clarity isn't there because I'm older. Truth is, they're dehydrated.
Yeah. They naturally eat less, so they drink less.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not healthy for them. Okay. I know you do talk a lot about water pH and alkaline water. Tell us a little bit more about why that's important.
Alkaline water has been around for a long time in Japan and in Asia, and it was noticed to be what they called functional water, and they watched how it was impacting people in a hospital setting. And really what it has to do with is the function of the body's pH and our health. So I've heard and listened to different people speak about this, and Tony Robbins was one of the ones that I really connected with, where he said, everyone knows your temperature is supposed to be what? 98.6. Right. We all know that, but people rarely think about or know about their body's pH. Mm-hmm. If they've got fish tanks, they know about the fish tank pH. If they've got a hot tub in a pool, they know about the pool pH. Well, our body's got a pH level, and it needs to be regulated, and it does a marvelous job regulating our blood pH. It does whatever it needs to maintain our blood pH to keep us healthy. A healthy blood pH is somewhere around the neighborhood of about 7.4, 7.365 to 7.4, and that's just over neutral, which is 7. So we're slightly alkaline. Well, the problem is that what we put around ourselves on a daily basis in our environment, our food, our beverages, are highly acidic. Mm-hmm. Soda, very caustic. Phosphoric acid, it's one of the worst things that we could put into our body, and yet people down it by the gallons because that's just what they've been sold on. Coffee and tea, black teas, too much of these things, diuretic, and they're very acidic. Mm-hmm. The foods that we eat, processed, full of all kinds of chemicals, make us very acidic. So it makes our body fight to keep our blood alkaline. Because what happens is if a healthy person, or just a person that's up and around and maybe not feeling their best, if their blood drops below, let's say, about 6.5, their blood level pH, they'll be in cardiac arrest. It'll be a tragic. They're nearing death. So what happens is the body fights to keep the blood alkaline. It does whatever it needs to, including robbing essential minerals from other parts of our body and our bones to maintain that alkalinity. Here's the case where we can have early onset osteoporosis and arthritis happening because the body is actually robbing essential minerals to keep our blood alkaline. And the other thing I thought was interesting learning about this was somebody wants to lose weight or fat, and actually people are holding fat in different parts of their body as a protectant. The body is storing fat because it's putting acid into the fat from the food and the environment that we're eating, and it's pulling the acidity into that fat so it keeps it away from the vital organs. Now, ironically, if we were just change one thing and change the pH of our body through proper food and proper hydration and proper water, we can flush these toxins out, and we can lose the fat, and we can help our bones stay healthier. All those things. That's why pH and alkalinity is so vital when we're talking about water.
Well, that's an interesting thing for me to know, because I've lost 20 pounds also since I started drinking the water, so haven't changed the amount of food I've had. I've tried to eat a little bit healthier, but definitely drinking lots of that water, so it's good to know what's flushing out all that stuff.
And that's it's one of the things that we always talk about. If you change just one thing, and that'll make an impact.
Yeah, well, that's great. Now, when a person does start researching water treatment and filtration, the amount of info is overwhelming out there, and I know a lot of times people don't know where to start or who to believe, or it's kind of hard to understand. It's like somebody trying to understand insurance and what insurance they should buy and why. You need someone you can count on that understands it and has all the information that it can explain it to you, like you.
Well, we encourage people to get informed and get information, and like you just said, figure out who they're talking to. So what's happened with the information age and the availability of knowledge that we have access to us online is overwhelming. And it also opens up an opportunity for people to prey on people, for people to put information out there and market and just make quick sales. In our industry, people have historically used fear factors and pushy sales to come in and just get whatever product they were offering into someone's house or home or business just to make a sale.
Right.
So the point that we want to make with people is think about what other things that you are researching that you want to purchase for yourself. Now, I'll go ahead and stand up and say that this is the most vital thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to the human body, because it makes up more of your body than anything else. So if I can't convince somebody to take care of their health in that regard, maybe a different analogy. Maybe if you were to go out and you had just purchased a world-class racehorse and you were going to take care of that racehorse and you were going to feed it and nurture it and take care of it, well, you wouldn't be able to go to somebody at the pet store, for instance, down the road that has puppy mill farm puppies in there and just some classic tropical fish and ask them how to take care of your world-class racehorse, right? So it's kind of the same thing. If you're going to take better care of that racehorse, well, don't you want to take better care of yourself? Because even that racehorse won't get taken care of if you're not taking care of yourself. So the idea is to find people that are willing to help you on your road to get this information, that aren't afraid to answer tough questions, that will tell you and are willing to give some of this information up front without looking for money. So that's one of the things. If there's an exchange of value here, we always want to be upfront and consultative, and we want to always look at new technologies when we're talking to people. So for some place to start, jump online and then look at the enormity of it. And I'm not in competition with big box, so to speak. There's a lot of water filtration and treatment components in big box stores, but it's the same kind of thing where you're going to get that expertise. If this is the most important thing about your body, then I probably don't want to ask the 17-year-old kid who was just over in the other aisle selling hammers to come over and tell me which of these products is going to be the best one for me, my water source, and my family. Right. So once you're ready to start getting more information, when you get the initial information, is contact a water treatment and purification professional and then interview them. Interview them like your life depends on it, like the health of your family and your home depends on it. Ask them some tough questions. Ask them about how they treat their customers. Ask them about how they operate and how they treat their own water, for instance, or what their process is, how they help people is what you want to know.
Right. That's really important. Most people do that now in consideration of their animals and pets, and then they don't do it for themselves. So, are there any new technologies emerging right now that most of us aren't aware of, but you are?
Well, happily, I'm going to report that we've recently went out to the Water Quality Association conference, and we're members of the WQA. We knew that was really important to get ourselves aligned with industries and specialists that were going to be helpful in bringing together all the expertise into one place. And we are excited because we went to this conference. There's people that have been in the industry for decades. And what I had seen and heard ahead of this was a lot of stagnant things. There was a lot of the same old, same old. I met with a lot of resistance when I would talk to somebody where I was looking to talk to a local plumber, for example, and bring new technologies. But I'm grateful and thankful to say there was a lot of new technology. There is, again, there's a caveat, and I want to make sure people understand, just because somebody put a new flashy, shiny technology in front of you doesn't mean it's the next best thing that you have to get. You always want to go and look and see what's the data behind it. What kind of clinical data and studies have they done? Where's the evidence and where's the proof? But there are new technologies. Is more emphasis being placed on environmentally friendly technologies, which is really, really important, because again, we're here in the U.S. thinking about how much water we have, but we don't have that much. And it is going to become a factor. And just because today we can go over the tap and turn it on and it's relatively low cost, doesn't mean tomorrow that it's going to be accessible and or that same cost. It's not free or cheap, it's priceless. So we were really excited to know about it. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, is connecting with some of the best industry companies that are out there that are like-minded, that want to go out and find these things and find the other partners and companies and bring all those technologies in front of our clients. Again, we're looking for those people that they want the best for their home, they want the best for their family, they want the best for their health. Then, well, that's our job, to go out there and find the best. Weed through all the marketing that's out there just to sell somebody something and bring it in front of them and show them, this is what we've got for you, this is how it works and why it works.
Well, that's great that you guys are willing to do that, because then people can come to you for their answers. What about you, Eric? How do you treat your water?
Well, I treat, that's great, and that's why I recommend people always ask somebody that comes in your home the same question. Well, what do you do at your house? What do you do for your family? And that's a great question. Well, we live on municipal supply water on the north side of Evansville, and so the things we talked about today were very real challenges for us. We don't have the hardest water in town, but we've got some mineral content, so we wanted to go ahead and treat that with a green solution so it wouldn't have a harmful effect on our home. And we took care of the mineral content side with a unique and exclusive anti-scale media that really makes sure that the calcium magnesium hardness doesn't build up on our fixtures and clog up our pipes and our water heater and all that. And then we also filter our water on the other side. So for the whole home, we filter our water with activated carbons that runs. Our raw water comes into our house and filters our whole house. So that takes care of our showers. So we're making sure that anything that's in our environment is already pre-filtered. Then from a finishing perspective, we use reverse osmosis, and then we use a countertop alkaline water generator. So we're all the way through the stages. We talk about total water quality management. We talk about the water that goes on the outside of us and the water that goes on the inside of us. And since eventually it's going to make up 70% plus of who we are, we treat our water like we want our water to treat us. We treat it like it's priceless because we know that our wealth is in our health, and that's the primary goal that we want to do. Why? Because we want to make sure we can go out and continue this mission that we've started and act on this calling and get out and tell more people about how important this is. So
this is exactly what you would recommend that other people do. So this first part system is the same, would be the equivalent of what other people would use as a water softener.
Yep.
But yours actually does more than that and doesn't put all that iodine into the system.
Absolutely. We got all the benefits we have the benefits of soft water while we leave the beneficial minerals in the water. So with no salt, no electricity, and no wasted water for back flushing. So we've got a green solution for the environment. We've got a healthy solution for our home. And of course, above all, we've got the healthy solution for our health.
Well, that sounds great. Well, I'm excited to implementing all those things. Looks like I've got part of it handled now, so I have to get the rest of it under wraps.
You're well on your way, and yeah. I'm grateful that you took this time out of your schedule to talk with me today, and look forward to sharing a lot of experiences and stories with you as we work together and help serve more people.
I look forward to sharing this information with others.
Thank you.
Okay.